welcome to the channel. Today we will dive into a world where the deepest secrets are hidden behind the facades of luxury and power. Get ready for intrigue, mystery, and unpredictable turns of events. Secret Trail, the disappearance of tycoons. Echoes of the past and the call of duty. John Dawson, once known in FBI circles as the Ghost, for his ability to disappear into the shadows and appear where he was least expected, now lived a life far from his former adventures. His lakeside cabin, nestled among ancient pine trees, was his fortress, his refuge from a world that had left too many scars on him. Sunlight lazily filtered through the treetops, drawing patterns on the old wooden floor. The air was filled with the aroma of coffee and dust, mixed with a slight note of melancholy. John was leafing through a long-forgotten book when the sharp ring of his landline, an anachronism he had deliberately kept to filter out unwanted contacts, broke the silence. He preferred the analog world, where there were no digital traces, where every call was a deliberate act, not an accidental spam. On the other end of the line was a voice Dawson would recognize in 1,000, dry, distant, but with hints of almost elusive authority. Dawson. We have a problem. A big one. You're going to like this. It was the handler, a man whose name and face were known only to a select few, but whose power extended far beyond any national borders. He was John's link to those who needed his unique skills, multinational corporations that needed to solve problems discreetly. John sighed. He knew that, so, in the handler's lexicon meant, this is going to be dangerous as hell, but you can't refuse. The last time the curator called, John had found himself in the middle of a cyber war between two Asian conglomerates, emerging with a few new scars and a double dose of cynicism. 3 have disappeared. In the last 2 weeks. In different parts of the world. But they were all in the same place not long before. The curator's voice was a dry report. They didn't just disappear. They disappeared. No ransom, no demands. Just a void. The police are helpless. We can't let this become public knowledge. There's too much at stake. John listened, his gaze sliding across the lake, reflecting the gray sky. He knew this language. A language where reputation was worth more than human life, and the public was just an inconvenience. Monaco, city of secrets and temptations. 48 hours later, John Dawson was in Monaco. The city-state, where every stone smelled of money and intrigue, was the antithesis of his secluded retreat. The Côte d'Azur, yachts the size of small cities, casinos where fortunes were lost, and the faces that graced the covers of Forbes were all part of a world John had once abandoned but which still drew him. He rented a modest hotel room, preferring to remain unnoticed. His cover story was that of a wealthy but eccentric investor looking for new opportunities. As if I was ever any different, he muttered to himself, looking at his reflection in the mirror. His slight smirk was the only sign that he found something ridiculous in this masquerade. As he stepped out onto the busy streets, a fleeting shadow seemed to reflect his movements a block behind him. A dark sedan with tinted windows lingered on the corner, its engine running almost silently. John, lost in thought, paid no attention, attributing the subtle change in the air to the constant hum of the city. The first stop in his investigation was the Orpheum, an elite private club accessible only to a select few. It was here, according to the curator, that all 3 missing tycoons were last seen shortly before their disappearance. The club was the epitome of luxury and exclusivity, velvet sofas, dim lighting, jazz music blaring from above, and faces that could only be seen on television screens. John felt at home here, despite his social anxiety. He knew how to blend into the crowd, becoming part of the scenery, and his mind was working at full capacity, analyzing every movement, every word. He noticed how the waiters glided between tables like shadows, how they exchanged glances over glasses of champagne, and how the air was saturated not only with expensive perfume, but also with unspoken secrets. From a discreet table near the entrance, a suited figure watched John enter, exchanging the barest of nods with another man across the room. In the center of the room, like a pearl in a setting, she stood. Tall, with a mass of dark hair falling to her shoulders, and eyes the color of the sea. Her smile was a promise, her gaze a challenge. Isabella de la Rua, as she was introduced. The owner of the Orpheum, a woman whose name was whispered in high circles. She moved with the grace of a predator, observing her guests like a conductor leading an orchestra. John felt a professional curiosity, mixed with a sense of caution. She was too poised, too calm for someone whose club had become the epicenter of such a mystery. He thought she was either a brilliant manipulator or simply very good at maintaining a poker face. Or both. John decided to start with Isabella. He approached the bar, ordered a whiskey on the rocks, and began to observe her. After a while, their eyes met. Her smile widened slightly, inviting a mental chess match. New here? Her voice was low, with a slight French accent. Or just a lost billionaire? John smirked. Looking for inspiration. And, perhaps, answers. Their conversation lingered. Isabella was smart, witty, and incredibly perceptive. She deftly evaded direct questions but provided enough information to maintain interest. She knew about the vanished magnates, but her version was too smooth, they simply left. In this world, people come and go. Sometimes without goodbyes. John noted that she said this with such ease, as if it were about changing seasons, not the traceless disappearance of three influential people. Do you often see such disappearing guests? John asked, trying to catch her off guard. Isabella merely shrugged, her eyes sparkling with an unreadable glint. In this club, every night is a new performance. And some actors simply leave the stage earlier than expected. He felt she was hiding something, but he couldn't figure out what. She was like a complex puzzle he was determined to solve. As he spoke, a waiter, seemingly preoccupied with clearing glasses, paused for a fraction of a second near their table, his movements too precise, too deliberate. John's subconscious registered the fleeting presence, but his focus remained on Isabella. By the end of the evening, John realized that Isabella was more than just a club owner. She was its heart, its soul, and perhaps its biggest secret. And he decided he needed to delve deeper into her connection to the club and the disappearances. The next day, John began to dig deeper. He used his old connections to gain access to the club's surveillance cameras but found that the recordings for the past 2 weeks had been accidentally deleted. Of course, he muttered. The most accidental accident in the world. He also learned that all three magnates were known for their unorthodox business practices and had many enemies. One of them, the Russian oil magnate, was involved in a money laundering scandal. The second, the Chinese tech genius, was suspected of intellectual property theft. The third, the Arab sheikh, was known for his ties to the underworld. Each of them could have been a target, but why all three, and why specifically at the Orpheum? John decided to visit the apartment of one of the vanished magnates in Monaco. Although the police had already searched it, Dawson trusted only himself. He infiltrated the penthouse using his old skills. The apartment was immaculate, too immaculate. No signs of struggle, nothing unusual. But something still caught his attention. On one of the shelves, among expensive souvenirs, stood an antique chess piece, a black knight. John remembered that the magnate was a passionate chess collector. But this knight was not from his collection. It was made of an unusual, almost black stone, and on its base, a barely visible symbol was engraved, a stylized letter, O, with a crossed line. As he left the building, a delivery van, parked conspicuously across the street, suddenly pulled away, its rear doors closing with a soft thud. John felt a prickle of unease, a fleeting sensation of being watched, but dismissed it as paranoia from his old life. The next evening, John returned to the Orpheum. Isabella met him with the same enigmatic smile. "Back for answers, Mr. Dawson?" she asked. "Or for something more?" John handed her the chess piece. "What can you tell me about this?" Isabella took the knight in her hands, her fingers gliding over the cold stone. Her face momentarily turned serious. "This is a very old item. A family heirloom. Where did you get it?" John told her where he found it, without going into the details of his visit. Isabella looked him straight in the eyes. "My father was a collector. He believed that every piece held its own story. And this knight, it's special." She revealed that this knight belonged to her father, who was a renowned antiquarian and collector of rare artifacts. He had died several years ago under mysterious circumstances. Isabella inherited the club and his collection, but she hadn't seen this particular piece since childhood. "My father said this knight was the key to something very important. But I never understood what. He became obsessed with this knight in the last years of his life." John felt the threads of the investigation beginning to intertwine. The connection between the vanished magnates, the Orpheum Club, and the mysterious death of Isabella's father was becoming increasingly clear. "Perhaps we can solve this mystery together?" John suggested, focusing on the shared investigative goal. Isabella smiled, but her eyes held a hint of caution. "Mr. Dawson, you are very persistent. But in this world, not all mysteries need to be solved. Some are better left untouched." However, there was more than just a warning in her voice. John understood that she was not just a club owner, but a guardian of a secret that might be more dangerous than he had anticipated. Their collaboration, if it happened, would be purely professional, driven by the unfolding mystery. Premonition of a storm. John left the Orpheum with the feeling that he had just opened a door to a labyrinth where every turn led to new danger. The chess knight, the vanished magnates, the enigmatic Isabella, and her deceased father, all were links in the same chain. He knew that in this world, where money and power ruled, there were no coincidences. And he was ready for the game, no matter how dangerous it might be. Night fell on Monaco, lighting up the casinos and luxurious villas. Somewhere in that darkness, the truth was hidden, and John Dawson was the only one who could find it. Unbeknownst to him, from a high vantage point overlooking the city, a pair of binoculars tracked his departure from the club, a faint glint of red light reflecting off the lens. The game had truly begun. Thank you for being with us. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss the continuation and new exciting stories.